found in my journal this saying, and I wanted to share this with everyone tonight. It says, there are plenty of instances of when we would rather suffer the pains of the current relationship because of our fear of not wanting to face the pains of a breakup. The breakup is painful. It implies something that has been broken because it was before breaking. I believe that that's another reason why our community have become the way we have become in terms of relationships and therefore our treatment of one another. That goes in harmony with the title of this small series. You know, we have been blinded by our disappointments. And our disappointments contain a whole lot of pain, regret, betrayal. You know, those are a whole lot of entities, you might as well say, that takes a lot out of us while we're inside of a relationship that is considered abusive because of verbal abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. And when we are, I would say, emotionally attached to someone, and we mistaking that as love, when it's really nothing other than we're just emotionally attached to that person. And it's also a fear of losing that person. So a lot of us, sometimes we remain in relationships for the sake of not wanting to feel the pain of a breakup, you know, so that you will not have to suffer through breaking up. Because for some reason, in terms of time, we fear that it's going to take us so many days, so many weeks, months, or years in order to heal from a breakup because we're broken on the inside. But which one would you rather suffer? Would you rather suffer inside of a so-called relationship where you and her or yourself and him are no longer really relating to anything upon a peaceful state? You're no longer communicating. And when you do communicate, you argue or you're on the borderline of getting into an argument. And then when you do get into an argument, the worst thing that we have done and we're still doing is using the act of sex in order to so-called resolve our differences when sex doesn't resolve anything. You know, this madness that a whole lot of these celebrities come up with called make-up sex. There is no such thing as a make-up sex, because if you were communicating to the degree that you ended up not communicating effectively, and you either agree to disagree and you go your other ways, or you just go silent and you don't talk about it anymore, which is another deadly blow to the relationship, because your efforts are not to communicate anymore, because actually there's no more love left. As my previous video had mentioned, if there is still love, then you still have something to build upon. Now, once it gets to the point to where you go your separate ways in terms of a disagreement that you have, and you let time go by, and then you crawl into bed with each other, and then you start having sex, and the very next day you act as though you didn't have a disagreement the night before, and you just carry on with your so-called relationship until that same subject comes up again. And then you wonder why does this keep coming up? Because it is something that has been unresolved, and you think that you resolved it by way of the act of sex. No, you're not resolving anything by way of sex. You have to communicate with one another. And in some instances, I'm pretty certain that a lot of you have come to notice or even come to realize within your current relationships that communication has almost diminished. And we're using sex as an object for resolve when that's an illusion. I've been through that type of so-called relationships, this so-called makeup sex, this thing of when you tell a person to leave, whether you're a man telling this woman to leave or a woman telling this man to leave. And when that person returns to get their belongings, you start talking to one another because you're angry at what transpired, which caused this person to have to come over and get their belongings. Now you want to communicate. And then you start arguing a little bit. You start, going back and forth. Next thing you know, people start touching each other, and there you are again. You're laid up in the bed and you're having sex, and all of a sudden, we're back together. When you're really not. Because you're still not dealing with the issue. So you're still apart psychologically because you haven't communicated with one another. You're relying on your emotional attachments. You've become addicted to one another. And the root of that is the fact that you fear going your separate ways and suffering the trial of healing and detachment. And so you would rather remain in a relationship, even though it's abusive and dysfunctional. You would rather suffer that pain than to suffer the pain of your own personal healings on both sides. So I bring this up because even after breakups, I encourage us to still find some way, even though we have come to realize that we are not going to be together because we're too indifferent. It doesn't have to always end in conflict and animosity. It could end in peace, even if the relationship was verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive. It doesn't necessarily always have to end in such a way to where hurt cultivates into a state of hatred towards one another. I say that because it has to get to the point to we sit down as adults. I hear a lot of people talk about this whole grown thing. We're grown men. I'm a grown woman. You want to know what grown means? It only means that you're 21. It only means that you are of legal age to where you could pretty much venture out into other areas of where other adults are functioning in life, like drinking or whatever the case may be. But to be an adult about things That takes a higher level of intelligence, patience, and death of the former self. And what I mean by death of the former self, I'm talking about the death of the former self because you have been risen to a state of maturity to the degree to where you recognize that breakups doesn't necessarily always have to end in animosity and hatred. I think that this is one of the reasons why our community is going through what we're going through. I think that this is one of the reasons why Black men and Black women have this animosity towards each other, because we have not gotten to the point to where we are able to go our separate ways without any animosity. Now, as unrealistic as this may sound to many of you, you have to ask yourself, why does this sound unrealistic to me? Why is this unrealistic to me? Just understand that there's a dual component with everything. And the reason why I say that is because what is deemed as unrealistic, the dual says otherwise. This is a realistic reality. It is realistic because the majority, I would say the majority of the women who I've had relationships with, we found out that we're not compatible. Now, I bring this up a lot, but this is just for example. My relationship that I had with Salam Yilmaz, who's in Georgia. A lot of people was asking me, why did you try to reach out to her by way of email, considering how very cruel she treated you while you were there? She tried to freeze you out of her home. She tried to starve you. She went out right in front of you. She brought men over to where you guys were staying, and she did everything that American Black women try to hide. But this Ethiopian, she did it all in your face. So David, did you still try to reach out to her because she was not an American Black woman, but she was an Ethiopian? No, that's not the case. And that's a very intelligent question to ask. And therefore, it's not a question that rubbed me the wrong way. No. The reason why I reached out to let her know that I'm fine. I hope things are going well with you. You know, I offer to you my friendship, and I went on my way. The reason why I did that is because I'm an adult. And I'm 60 years old right now, and I don't have any high blood pressure or anything like that, because I know how very unhealthy situations can escalate to the degree that it starts to affect your physical self. I'm an adult, and adults are able to move on. Adults have the ability to look into a situation objectively and understand that I'm not going to allow my past to complicate my present. And I'm not going to allow the harshness of a bad relationship alter me or kill me in a sense to where I can't love another woman when I come in contact with her. And it's not that most people will say, yeah, you can't let her win like that. No, I cannot allow things to defeat me. And the only way that things can defeat me is if I allow it. There's nothing on the planet that's going to make me hate anyone that I've ever been with. Even with the cruelty of my son's mother, causing my youngest son to not speak to me. I don't hate my son's mother. I still very much love her. But at the same time, we are not compatible. We live two different lifestyles. She's out doing her thing, and I'm out doing mine. You know, I'm a writer. You know, I'm getting more successful in the market. You know, to where I'm starting to accumulate a whole lot of wealth, to where I will soon be able to buy property out here in Las Vegas. That's my life. You know, I'm a writer. I'm into real estate. I'm in the stock market, and I'm at peace. And I'm at peace. Now, if I'm at peace and if I'm an adult, what do I look like holding animosity towards anyone that I've been with? Because I live in the present, not only physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. I bring all of that up is because this is one thing that we as a community need to pay very close attention to. It's not about always what that person did to you. See, did implies the past, which means you're still alive and you're moving forward. And if you're hurting from the past, it only means that in the present, you're also healing while you're moving forward. I brought up Brother Miles Davis' condition when he suffered through the pain of getting off of heroin and cocaine. He said each moment, the pain gets less and less. See, he's talking about the healing element within time. It's like Jesus says, suffer it be so. Suffer it. Suffer it. That alone implies a series of time to where the healing element is present. Suffer through it. Because at the end of it, you're going to be healed. And even in your state of being healed, you still have to observe yourself and make certain that that past situation did not defeat you. Are you still able to love someone? And if you're still able to love someone, then you are a winner. I promise you that. Because of what I suffered out in Georgia, I should be the most evil and mean brother that you could ever meet. But I refused to die. The guy who I was, I put him to death while I was in Georgia. I put him to death on that same battlefield because I came to understand that he was the problem. It wasn't her, it was me. So once we get to the point to where we take responsibility for what we done or even didn't do, only then will we become successful towards one another. See, there's a lot of pain going on in our community with Black men and Black women. And that pain has blinded us because it's so intense, it has blinded us because we're disappointed in one another. See, the disappointment still exists because we have not sat down and effectively communicated with one another. As I said in another one of my videos, is when I was dating those 9 different women when I was driving a bus. And then one day these 2 young brothers were praising me because of that. And it made me feel like scum. And it revealed to me, not only did I feel like scum, I absolutely was scum. And it helped me understand the damage that I was doing to all of those beautiful Black women that I was sleeping with. And so after a while, I went back and I apologized to every single one of those women. And I helped them understand the damage that was done to them. And All of them said that you don't have to apologize, David. I enjoyed your company. And the only reason why that they enjoyed my company, as I said before, is because of the way that I was raised. I was raised to be a gentleman. However, even though I was able to execute myself being a gentleman, another part of myself was tragically immoral. So you have to go inside and find out where you're falling short. Now, we could sit up on all of these panels and talk about where Black women are falling short and where brothers are falling short. But as long as we're on these panels, pointing the finger at one another, talking about, well, y'all like this and y'all like this and that, I watch a whole lot of these panels, and at the end, nothing has been resolved. So all of the information that has been going back and forth goes into it's vain, because what is the solution? What is the resolve? So I find myself coming to understand that the only way that our community is going to get better, we have to admit our faults. And as Black women, as Black men, we have to admit our faults. And we are able to admit our faults without still containing those faults and those flaws as a part of our personality. So when you admit those faults and those flaws of character, it does not imply that you have to hold on to them. In admission to those flaws, be rid of them. However, we've gotten to the point to where we are even afraid to let go of what is destroying ourselves and one another. And that's a shame. And that's one of the reasons why all of this is still continuing to flourish. But I have a whole lot of faith in all of us. And if we continue to do what we're doing, and once we get to the point to where we actually can end a discussion with a resolve that's going to give the rest of us, even the viewers, hope that things are going to become better, then our discussions imply, with everything ending in hope, things are in fact getting better. Things are in fact getting better. So I'm going to do my part. A lot of people that I know, they look at my videos, they're like, wow, Dave, you just told them blah, blah, blah. I don't care, man. I don't have anything to hide. Okay? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay? I don't worry about what people think and what they say. Oh, I would never say that. That would embarrass me. It's your problem that you don't understand the power of embarrassment and the power of shame. Embarrassment is powerful. Due to the fact that you are able to be embarrassed is good. It's a device for internal resolve and internal order. The same as shame. Shame immediately reveals to you your flaws. And in revealing to you your flaws, it, in the same movement, is telling you, get it together, get it together. So shame, embarrassment, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Now, as I said before, there's a dual component with everything. I don't think that anybody should take this and say, well, I'm going to shame this dude, or I'm going to embarrass this person, because shame and embarrassment is good. It's not something that you can put in your psyche as putting bullets in a weapon and shooting it at someone. Shame and embarrassment is for yourself, because if you notice, that's where it emanates from you. Now, once someone exposes a part of you and they try to embarrass you and shame you, see, the way that I perceive that when it's done to me, I perceive it as a way of looking at myself and making the necessary changes inside in order to become a better functioning human being in this society. So instead of people getting angry all the time and going back and forth, oh, you don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know me, Bob, all of that conflict, it's not necessary. The whole thing is becoming a better human being so that the world can become better. We have to get to the point to where we have to understand that we are blinded by our disappointments, and things can get better if we make up in our minds and in our hearts that we're going to go through this together as a community and resolve it. This is what we used to do back in the village, back in Chicago when I was coming up in Chatham Village. My great-grandmother did not allow me to disrespect my neighbor, Miss Matley, and just get a whipping from it and told me to go to my room. That's not resolved because Miss Matley next door is still offended. What are you going to do about that? This is the reason why she told me, I've taught you better. You know better. She said, you love Miss Matley, and therefore you treat Miss Matley like you love her. The very next day, as I said in the video, she came and she woke me up. She said, get up. You're going to spend the whole day with Miss Matley. And when I went over there, Miss Matley gave me a lot of information about life. And when she told me that about the flower, and when she was telling me that you're gonna struggle, but you can get past it. You wanna know why she told me that I was gonna struggle? Because she saw a personality flaw that she was basically telling me, you're gonna have to get yourself together because you're gonna struggle. However, the immense of your struggle can be lessened if you change your current self. Now, if you allow your current self to change and to become better, then your struggles through life are going to be less instead of more. Now, if all of us come together and understand that our gift of communication must become better, even on these panels, we can't be going back and forth over talking one another, because this over talking thing, it only implies that I don't respect what you're saying. I don't agree with what you're saying. So I'm going to overtalk you instead of waiting for this person to end their point, even if you don't agree with it. Have some type of self-respect and self-discipline and respect for the other person who is talking to end their point. And then you say what you say, what you want to say. My spiritual and intellectual twin, Jiddu Krishnamurti, he said there's two forms of communication: a verbal communication and a non-verbal communication. The verbal communication is I speaking to you. The non-verbal communication is you listening to me speak to you. Verbal, I'm talking. Non-verbal, you're listening. Verbal, you're talking. Non-verbal, I'm listening. That's called communication. And this is what we're going to have to learn. So we're going to have to stop being grown in that area. I'm grown. I do what I want to do. We're going to have to understand the reality and the benefits of being adults. Because when you become an adult, you understand that those things are not proper. I was telling some men at work, because there was a beautiful young lady who had came aboard, and by her being so attractive, a whole lot of my male co-workers were running behind her like a pack of dogs. And they had her working with me for a couple of nights. And what I noticed is one of my co-workers were asking her questions. And he said, "Where are you from?" And then he said, "How many kids do you have?" And see, where I come up, a question like that towards a woman is improper. And so at the end of the shift, I pulled him to the side. I said, "Brother, let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this or not, but it is very disrespectful to just out and ask a woman, how many kids does she have?" Now, a lot of people may say, what's offensive about that? I call that being all in a woman's vagina, all in her personal areas. If she wants you to know that she has children, wait for her to tell you that by way of you and her communicating in a conversation. Because I don't know any mother who tries to hide the fact that she has children. I said, as adults, there's certain questions that you shouldn't be asking a woman that you don't know. How many kids do you have? I told you, that's disrespectful, that's rude. So you need to check yourself on that. Well, you know, he called me old school. Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I would rather be old school. Because you want to know something? Old school, this gray on my face, you want to know what this means? It means that I haven't been a fool all my life. Because Brother Richard Pryor has said, you don't get to be old being no fool. So this whole thing talking about the good die young, not all the time. Not all the time. We have a lot of young people who made a whole lot of foolish decisions that eventually led to their deaths. So I believe I'm going to do one more video of this, because even right now I'm getting some more things that I want to talk about, but I don't want these videos to be too long. So with all of this being said, I would love for us to understand the importance of resolve. Putting information out that is fruitful. Putting information out that is healing for our community. Understand that the animosity, the pains and the animosities and the results of breakup and suffering through the healing in terms of the breakup, sometimes it leaves people hurt, damaged, and ineffective towards not only future relationships, but common relationships. I mean, it could be at your job or whatever the case may be. So we have to heal in all of those areas, and the information that we're putting out on YouTube and other places, we have to make certain that at the end of all of these podcasts, at the end of all of these beautiful discussions, we end those discussions in a way to where there is some hope for us to move forward in love. So with all of this being said, I hope that a lot of you got something out of this. And everyone have a beautiful and productive and successful night. And everybody, as I said before, stay human. I love y'all, and let's get it together. Let's get it together. Let's go back to the village, y'all. The village was right. All right? Peace.